Everybody, welcome to the Friday episode of the Dobbin Bandits. I'm Orrin Phillips, and we are talking toys today. We're talking with Brian Heiler of Plaid Stallions website. They also have a Facebook group. Brian is an expert on all things toys. He loves the stuff that we love. He has two books out that I have, one about rack toys, one about foreign bootlegs of popular American toys. Stuff that I think is just the absolute coolest. Brian thinks it is too. And we have a really fun conversation talking about Migos, talking about all the different toys that we grew up with loving. So if you love toys, you're going to love this episode. Here's Brian with author Brian Heiler. Sir, how are you doing this evening?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me. I wouldn't call myself a comic book collector, but the dollar bins are like that's where good stuff is.
That's where the
And
gold's at.
yeah, and I don't know if you guys share stories, but I got the first appearance of Animal Man. I
Oh,
was the man with the amazing animal powers for $1 back in 1989. And I think that's my best score. Oh, Justice League number four. You got that too for $1.
are you serious?
Yeah, I gave that to my son.
Nice.
He had to have it, and I was like, "Yeah, I can't believe I found this." I was like 18 when I found that.
Sounds like the Canadian dollar bins are a little better off sometimes than the American dollar bins.
Well, it depends on where you go. You go to an antique mall, no.
Hmm, right. Basically, they know what they have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they
But
usually have their comics in those like Ziploc bags. Have you ever seen that? Like you go and they've got some like gold key Star Treks that have been run over. And you're like, oh, I love gold key Star Treks, and I don't care about condition in it. But they're all, if I see them in a Ziploc bag, I know it's going to be insane.
yeah, one guy down here, he keeps putting them in like the produce bags that you put your fruits in at the grocery store.
Yeah,
And they're bags that are so old, it's for like, stores that are no longer in existence. So these must have been sitting here since like 83 in
yeah,
these bags, and he just decided just to keep bringing them on out.
that's really funny.
It's like of all the things to put them in.
Yeah.
But I know the big thing for you is toys. So
Hmm.
how did toys become such a big part of your life?
Because I think, and I've been going over this a lot, but my parents were in the toy industry when I was a kid.
Okay.
They were not major players,
Mhm.
but my father had a distribution business, and he would do everything from like anything a small convenience store needed.
Mhm.
So he was really into rack toys and all that stuff, and he would fly to Toy Fair every year, and that was like the period of my life where I wanted to join my dad's business. Like what my dad did was amazing. And true story, at 2 years old, I actually snuck out of my house
Mhm.
and tried to walk to his work. I got caught by the cops. It's very few times I've been in the back of a squad car, but at 2 years old, I was in the back of a squad car with the hat on, and I got croup from that. And it was weird, as I actually almost made it to his warehouse,
Wow.
because I kind of had an innate sense of where it was. Um, but yeah, I mean, like when I came into that as a kid, I remember he had a what is called a gaylord, and that isn't it's basically a pallet with a large cardboard wall, and he had this gaylord of Viewmaster reels when you walked into his warehouse, and I used to just like fish my arm in and go, "Oh, I got Family Affair," and take it home, and that was like my childhood, and it was weird, like I didn't understand. Like I'd watch TV shows and like, Fred Flintstone had Mr. Slate. And I'm
Right.
like, who's my dad's boss? And they're like, your dad is the boss. And it's like, but he doesn't have any employees, like, but yeah, so that was kind of, and also my grandparents owned a shoe store, which
Mhm.
isn't particularly toy related, except that like because of our family situation, my sister and I were often dropped off at the mall to be like kind of one eye babysat by my grandparents while we just buggered around in the mall.
Mhm.
And I would spend a lot of time in the hobby store and the Woolco toy department. So my entire existence is weird. Like as a child, my dad subscribed to all the toy industry magazines. And, there's days where I had to spend time at his warehouse while he worked, and I would read these. So I knew like the presidents of toy companies as a kid, and um it laid dormant for a while, and then in my, in my late teens and my early 20s, I just got right back into it, and I started um, going to his old suppliers
Mhm.
and seeing what they still had left. So yeah, it's so entwined into like I'm not surprised I ended up where I am.
I was gonna say, and that background makes sense because, with your book with about rack packs and knockoffs,
Yeah,
being in the industry, you sort of
yeah.
have that innate knowledge of, okay, these were, the off-brand versions of maybe Rambo figures or something like that. You could spot them pretty quick.
Oh yeah, like there was two kinds of things my dad bought. Closeouts. So we'd get toys from the 60s. And one of the biggest ones was Little Kittles, the Mattel. I guess like they're like these little you'd call them like super deformed now or almost like Funko Pops. There's these little
Right.
dolls that had huge heads and little bodies, and they did a series called Cosmic Kittles,
Mhm.
which was they were in like these George Jetson spaceships that the tops came off, and they came on little rocket bases. And my dad got those for like, I don't know, like 10 or 12 cents each.
Mhm.
And he bought like 100,000 of them, and he sold them at all the variety stores for like $1, and they flew. And that was one of my favorite things to tell him because those things are worth like 300-400 bucks now because they were a disaster and they were dumped in Canada by my dad. And every time I see one, I kind of like, I try to buy it because I loved those, but they're always like 300 bucks.
Right.
And it's just like, oh man, like, we could, and that's the one thing because he didn't remember all the stuff he's bought over the years,
Mhm.
but Cosmic Kittles did so well for him that he was, he's a big fan of that kind of stuff. But the other kind of stuff he bought were just straight generic rack toys.
Mhm.
And even as a kid, I knew that that was supposed to be James Bond or that was supposed to be, Starsky and Hutch on that package. And he also picked up knockoff action figures like the Lincoln Monsters and things like that that have definitely shaped
Mhm.
who I am.
I said, was there a go-to toy for you as a kid, a certain line of toys that you really gravitated towards?
Yeah, it was Mego figures.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it was any one. I think that's the thing is I was kind of um, at that right age. I think I was like 4 when Mego came out with like the apes
Mhm.
and superheroes, and I was like 5 when they came out with like Star Trek and like it was just this immersive world. And I always thought that everyone had this. And then, you look back and, the history of toys, and it's like, no, this was a really unique period where everything got licensed.
Yes.
And, the mid 70s. So it's a unique time to grow up. And I'm not going to say it was better, but it was only better because I was, a little kid at the time.
Right. What are your thoughts now on the Mego sort of coming back? I know they have newer versions of toys now, and they saw sort of the retro looking box, but there's sort of been a resurgence of
Mhm.
Mego back into the popular landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy it's there.
Right.
I really was happy it was there. I think it, I think it's come back because I also work on the Miga Museum,
Mhm.
and for like 25 years we've been talking about the comeback of Migo, and then it happens, which I gotta be honest with you, I didn't see that. I didn't have that in my my bingo card. And it was a huge, it was like this. It's like you're in this kiddie pool and a bunch of linebackers start jumping into the kiddie pool. So it took a long time to, kind of find how do we feel about this? Like, I personally have gotten some things that are like, holy crap, I have Planet of the Apes mutants, and they're awesome. And so yeah, I'm a big fan. I can't say like I think they've put out like 300 and change action figures in the last few years. And I would probably say I have, 50 to 60 of those at best. Um, but I really like them. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, and honestly, if Mego tomorrow got a license that I didn't care about, it's still really cool to see their stuff on the shelves. And I've gotten like not that it's all about me, but I mean it's a personal thing. Is
Right.
There were so many bucket list. Oh my God, fantasy action figures that came out that I'm thrilled. You know what I mean? Like, they did Hammer
Mhm.
and the Hammer Migos, like, and some of the classic Star Trek characters they came up with were like those Klingons and stuff. Yeah, I'm a fan, but it really did, I think, displace me for a while.
Mhm.
But I always liked the product. I wasn't used to like we were basically like, how do you put this? Like, in a comic sense, we were the Atlas Comics Club. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then like, we never expected Atlas to come back, and then it does, and we're like, what? And by the way, I love Atlas
Atlas
Comics.
comics are
So
amazing.
so when Mego did those Atlas comics, I was like, I'm dead. And this is just some sort of surreal, purgatory fantasy because it's so weird.
Right,
Like, but I really enjoy like I mean I don't see how there's a down thing to new Mego product on the shelves. I don't have to buy it.
right.
But I see the Mego logo when I go to toy stores, occasionally. And that's cool. I think that's really cool. And to be honest with you, there's also times like I bought a mystery box of Migos from a company called ZLC recently. They're just like they're clearance. And there was stuff in that box. It's like, I forgot they did this. And it's only been like the last 7 years, but
Right.
like it's crazy. It's been a whirlwind.
For Mego collectors, what's the thoughts on the, let's say, the Dukes of Hazzard or the Chips line, where they were the smaller figures, with the screws in the back, more action figure types as opposed to the bigger ones? Do Mego collectors still go for those as well, or is it sort of cut off at the older products?
No, actually, I think it's an interesting mix, and that's like I don't know if you can define Amigo collector
Right.
in the same regards that you can like define somebody who collects like Kenner Star Wars
Mhm.
because it's a company and their output changed over the years.
Mhm.
So like yeah, a guy who collects share dolls is a Amigo collector.
Right.
A guy who collects Micronauts is a woman who collects the world's greatest superheroes. Like it's all the same thing. It's just, but I would have to say that the reigning champion of Mego nostalgia is the 8-inch line.
Mhm.
But the 3 3/4 inch line, like I was, a kid during that period, and we went from Mego to Star Wars, and then I really did love Mego's O-ring figures with the screw in the back. And I don't know if you know this, but when Hasbro pitched G.I. Joe
Mhm.
to return in 1981, they used Chips figures.
Okay.
And that's why they look exactly like, they went with the O-ring.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who love the Chips, the black hole, that kind of stuff. I would say that what happens is there's a shift, and this could just all be my perception, but over the years, I feel like people who collect like 80s toys tend to gravitate towards more of those, and then the 70s collectors tend to gravitate towards the 8-inch. But there's also like, it's like a big one of those diagrams where the circles intersect, um, because like there's people who only collect Mego Star Trek. There's people who only collect Mego Planet of the Apes. Like, and they're all welcome, and they all bring their own energy to the room, and I like that. I like that about Mego, probably because I'm a bit neurodivergent, and I hop from thing to thing,
Right.
and so and this is why Mego's the perfect company for me, I guess.
When toys start getting graded as they are right now, and that sort of
Mhm.
becomes the thing. What were your thoughts when it sort of that became the normal for toys, that it has to have this certain
Yeah,
grade?
it never became the norm in Mego collecting.
Right.
We kind of didn't embrace it. Now, I'm not saying there isn't like rooms full of AFA graded Migos somewhere. But I found like what that was, and I took a long time to look at it because I was actually kind of worried about it
Right.
because it would have priced me right out of collecting
Mhm.
and a lot of other people. And I personally view it with a little bit of disdain. Like, I know it came out of the Star Wars world,
Mhm.
and the Star Wars world was, it's 10 times the size of Mego.
Mhm.
Like I used to go to Rebel Scum and get scared. It's like Country Mouse goes to the city. Um, and I think, and there's lots of sharks in that water.
Mhm.
And I've read about amazing scandals. So like AFA makes sense for the Star Wars guy.
Mhm.
AFA makes sense for probably a lot of really maybe superpowers or GI Joe or whatever. When someone's trying to be a skunk.
Mhm.
But I have seen so much impropriety when they grade Mego because they're not the authority.
Okay.
That they know their stuff, but you can't know everything, and you almost have to bring someone in
Mhm.
at times to do stuff. And that's the thing I don't like is this all-encompassing authority idea because like honest to God, I've been collecting toys since 1985,
Mhm.
and if you brought me a counterfeit Thundercat, I may let it go by. I may not know what it is.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. I actually saw a graded Mego that someone had taken out of the box and painted the face.
Really?
Like to look more, it was a Batman and it was made to look more like the Neil Adams Batman. That did not exist.
Mhm.
That never happened.
Mhm.
And it's graded by AFA. And that to me is like, I would consider that like my Waterloo in
Mhm.
putting authority on anything, like, oh, that's embarrassing. Um, but and I'm not going to just attack, like, I know there's a bunch of grading companies, but Mego collectors are very tactile. I don't know many that love grading.
Right.
And I do know like collectors who are like they have a graded piece. And I have graded pieces in my collection too.
Mhm.
But they came to me that way. Is like the only way I could get them was graded. And I will tell you this, and if you grade like Amigo Spider-Man, I think it can make more money because the person who buys graded toys looks for that confidence that it's not faked. Um, but if you grade something like Amigo, say a red-haired Dracula,
Right.
nobody is going to pay a dime more for it. You know what I mean? You'll still probably get top dollar,
Right.
but you're not going to get whatever you did to grade it out of it. It's just going to be embedded in the price. That is something I 100% believe in.
I'm reading Knockoff right now and I love it. And I'm
Thank you.
curious about the research that goes into it because it's deep cuts that you're doing. And I'm wondering, how do you find out about all that there is out there?
Well, when you go into like the book, you'll see like about 50 names.
Yeah.
And I mean, toy collecting for me is about relationships.
Mhm.
And I love talking to people who collect stuff that I don't
Mhm.
because they always have these neat little nooks and crannies. Like I love stories.
Right.
And I love, I like rabbit holes that aren't like conspiracies. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you also get to meet some really eclectic personalities.
Mhm.
And I found in the knockoff world, everyone's this eccentric kind of kind person. For the most part, I mean, I've met a couple of people that were like, "Oh God," but the most part, they were willing to share and also tell me about their passions. Right? Like I could, like I'm not a He-Man collector,
Mhm.
but I managed to meet, guys like Michael Zoltar and Chance Priest and a couple of other nice fellows that really know that world of their knockoffs. And that is, when I was researching the book, like I think like there was times where I would just be like my head would be spinning with just how much information these guys had. And with knockoffs, I wasn't looking to be comprehensive. Like I think a book about all of the different Galaxy Warriors figures would be amazing,
Mhm.
but it's not a broad interest book, and it's also not a book I could write
Mhm.
because it's my heart's not in it. But I would buy it
Right.
and like in a heartbeat. But what knockoffs was supposed to be was just sort of like a compendium to what's out there, and then find your rabbit hole in this book and get obsessive with it. And writing that book was extremely cathartic. I made some really good friends,
Mhm.
and working with the bootleg artists at the end of that was so fun because those, like, I love irony. I have a really I have a real comedic bent to
Mhm.
everything I do, and I love ironic comedy and knockoffs and that sort of thing. That it's just inherently there, and to see the humor now being brought out, and just some of the crazy creative stuff I've seen, and that there's actually like we're Toronto is getting its own like designer toy con this year. It's going to be called Toy Riot,
Mhm.
and it's being like held up by the people I met through the book. And while I'm not in their scene, I can't wait to go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I can't wait to be part of it. And so yeah, it was a really fun book. And also like I just think knockoffs are hilarious. Like I just think every page is laughable. And you can the book wrote itself and the jokes and all that sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah, it's so amazing what gets copied,
Yes.
you know?
And I think for Star Wars collectors, that realm of knockoffs has bled into regular collecting as well. You have to have the, turkey.
Uze.
Exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That stuff was garbage in the early 90s. Like it
Yeah.
was like $25 curio trash. And what's funny was also the foreign cards were too.
Right.
Because I remember buying a Palatoy like 12 back for like $40 off a guy in the early 90s. Like, oh, it's English. It's
Right.
like, I don't care. It's still a 12 pack. And
Right.
then that just turned.
Mhm.
Like I don't know when it happened. I wasn't invited. I didn't get the email invite, but all of a sudden everybody was after foreign cards, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. But yeah, it's a funny thing. And like I said, I'm more of a tourist in the Star Wars world,
Mhm.
because I don't want to get beat up. But, and I loved Star Wars as a kid, but I just don't need to reunite with it the way I do other things. But yeah, I love the Star Wars knockoffs. I mean, that could be a 10 book series, I think. Yeah.
For you, you spoke about superpowers growing up, and I know
Hmm?
that there is sort of the Canadian variants that have, in French, they would have the name and stuff like that. I
Oh
think
yeah.
on the boxes as well.
Hmm?
For you guys, was that the norm? Like, were those the superpowers you got, or was it the
Oh
American
yeah.
shipped? Okay.
Yeah, well, we got two different kinds of superpowers, and this is a weird thing that like I'm happy to share because I know the guy there was a sorry, I should backtrack. In Canada, you have ever seen those skinny cards?
Yes.
Those were a promotion with Shell gas stations,
Oh, wow.
and they were done by a Kenner rep.
Mhm.
Well, he was an Irwin rep,
Mhm.
because Irwin was actually Canada's Kenner.
Mhm.
His name is Earl, and I worked with Earl on some very unusual promotions, including one for pickles. But Earl was just this old school salesman, and we were working together one day at a real estate show, and he starts talking about, yeah, I used to work at Irwin. And he's just started talking about the next day. I said, do you have anything left? He's like, yeah. And the next day he brought me a garbage bag of Star Wars figures on the card, like a garbage bag. And I was like, so we were friends. And he did that Shell gas station promotion. And what killed me was I knew he wasn't full of crap because he knew every in and out of it.
Right.
Because like I said, hey, I went to Shell and I asked for a Martian Manhunter and they gave it him, the regular card. He goes, oh, they were so impatient. I shipped regular cards too. And then I said, how come those cards ended up in the States? He's like, because Shell over ordered and I shipped them to Buffalo. So he dumped, which is totally not cool.
Yeah.
Because there was Canadian market, but he just dumped it all in Buffalo. at some wholesaler, and it was like, oh, so that's how like the Robins got to the States and stuff, and the Wonder Womans, you know. But yeah, that we had two different kinds of cards, but I'd say around the it's hard to tell when it happened. It depends on the company and stuff, but like
Mm,
the 76 is kind of when you had to get real serious about the bilingualness.
mm,
Because I have early, 70s Mego toys, and they are indiscriminate from American. They are American Migos.
right.
It was not into, and they could get away with it because the word like Planet of the Apes or
Mm,
but as things increased by the late 70s, you had to have Star Wars, La Guerre aux Trois, and superpowers and whatever their power was they were saying in the window had to be the French equivalent below. I'd say that was really predominant around 78 to now. Um, so yeah, we did get like weird packages. And the other thing that was weird was we would often get like Mego toys, but they'd have another company's logo on them, right? Like Grand Toys. So when I was a kid, like when the Dungeons and Dragons figures came out, I thought Mego did them because they had the Grand Toys logo on them. I
mm.
didn't realize Mego had gone out of business, but yeah, like stuff like that. I'm just trying to think of like we got some really weird variants too
Mm,
because we had like like our own Kenner here.
right.
Weird card variants, things like that with Star Wars. But yeah, Canadian packaging is what it's one of my passions. I love the Canadian packaging, and God help me if there's a store that I went to as a kid as the price tag, because that's just such a perfect connection, you know?
Were there any Canadian exclusive toy lines that were popular for you as a kid?
Yeah, I would say, well, I mean, I wouldn't say like Canadian exclusive, but Canadian exclusive figures
Okay.
that I didn't even know were like the Black Hole. We got old Bob and the Star and the Humanoid and
Mm,
the Star Trek aliens from the movie. They all came out here. We got some Micronauts vehicles you guys didn't get, and it
mm.
was all because the distributors here had to pay with a letter of credit when they ordered. So, Migo had the excuse to like, oh, this bombed, so we'll just cancel everything. But everyone else was getting their order, whether they liked, the pizza was coming. So we did get some neat stuff. But I can't think of a Canadian exclusive toy line
Okay.
because it just wouldn't have, like for action figures anyways, because it wouldn't have the legs in Canada to succeed without American R&D and backing and that sort of thing.
You also do the site Plaid Stallions,
Hmm?
and I think it's absolutely phenomenal because it's everything you think is cool is stuff I think is cool, and
Oh, good.
I
Yeah, I
think
can see right now you've got the Marvel appearance poster behind you.
there you go.
And it's like, yeah, yeah, you and me same. I love that stuff. Yeah, it that came out of working at the Mego Museum, and I would buy catalogs and everything to research Mego, but there would be 300 other pages in this thing full of toy ads. And for a while there, I was trying to like peddle them to other people. Like I was going like, "Hey, you have a superpower site. Would you like all these scans?" And I don't know if people like maybe they just didn't read their emails or whatever, but I just didn't get a lot of response to that. And it was like, why am I walking up and down the street, pounding the pavement trying to give this stuff away? Why don't I just share it?
Right.
And also like um be weird online. Like I loved my wife and I always loved going through old catalogs and making, strange comments, and
Mm.
it was just fun. It was cathartic. It was not something I ever thought was going to blow up, but it was something that was like, this is just a fun use of my time. I had two very young kids too, by the way.
Yeah, one thing I love that you put on there, you had a story about John Saxon, and for some
Yeah.
reason, every time he's on screen, I tell my kids, "Oh, that's John," and they don't know who he is. And I'm like, "He was in Enter the Dragon. This
Oh
guy was
yeah.
in Nightmare on Elm Street. Like he was in every detective TV show in the '70s. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the
He
hammiest character actors, but he was awesome."
I actually love his acting. It's sort of like the same. he doesn't have a big range. He plays that guy really well.
Yep.
And whenever he goes off into something, it's kind of fun to watch, but it's sort of like this is John Saxon playing, a Roman emperor. But yeah, um I've had an obsession with like I'm it doesn't show in the site that much, but I'm a movie and TV buff as well. Like
Mhm.
I'm just like I've been watching Kung Fu reruns all week,
Okay.
and which speaking of John Saxon, he's like twice a season on that. But yeah, I think he's actually in the first episode of Kung Fu. I
Wow.
think that's yeah. Um I'm a huge fan of character actors in 70s and 60s television, as a lot of people are. And
Mhm.
I love drive-in movies and that sort of thing,
The
you know.
best thing about the character actors in that time is they would play a character in one season, come back 3 seasons later as a different character. Not much difference in how they look or their appearance and stuff. And yet you were convinced, well, this is a totally different person.
I honestly think Roddy McDowall played three different scientists in the 70s involving androids. Like he's in Fantastic Journey and he's got an army of androids. He's in the pilot for A Man Called Sloan and he gets murdered by his androids. And I think he's a scientist on Wonder Woman, but I don't know if it's androids that time. But like you really are starting like, and I love that. I mean, it's comfort food. It's shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
Watching these character actors, and that's my favorite thing of watching an old TV show is
Mhm.
to see who's in it. Who's young and who you forgot about.
Yes. For you, you mentioned before, as far as toys go, white whales. Are there white whales for you? Toys that are what you would love to have that have just escaped your grasp?
Yeah, my biggest white whale is something I owned and sold
Okay.
because I didn't frickin' realize what I had. And that I think that one is still like haunting me a little bit. It's like you idiot. But there are a few things I think exist. There's one or two things I know exist.
Mhm.
I think I'm more excited for the I think it exists thing because I want to be right.
Right.
But I'm a very patient man. I don't hunt deer, but I think I'd be very good at it because I can just sit and wait. Um, and that's one of my favorite. I love the hunt,
Mhm.
and by having these targets that are um so out of like so they might take 5, they might take 10, they might take 20 years to find. That when they do it, even though it like there's times where I found something and I paid $14 for it.
Right.
And that was like the greatest find ever because it's not always the thing that everyone remembers is the thing you remember or the thing you think exists and you just get that little puff of satisfaction. I was right. I love that stuff. I mean, this is a hobby and that's basically what you're supposed to do is approach it in a way that brings you joy and I like hunting down weird pockets of this universe, you know.
I have a deep cut Mego question for you. My buddy John, he owns a toy store here in town. We go back and forth, but I
What's the
saw
store?
Imperial Castle, John Ragusa.
I've heard the name John Ragusa. I
Yeah.
don't recognize Imperial Castle, but I definitely know John Ragusa. John
Yes.
Paul Ragusa, right?
Yes, that's him.
Yes, definitely know that name. Yeah, yeah.
So we saw a house ad for Mego for the Chips line, and it said
Mhm.
there was a lieutenant's police car. It had no badging or anything on it. It was a black and white car with red and blue lights, and the roof would pop open. You could put the figure in. He has no
Yeah.
memory of that ever being produced. I think they made a Dukes of Hazzard one too. Do you know if
Yeah,
those
they
are
did
ever
make
put
the
out?
Dukes of Hazzard one. I
Okay.
I swear they made the Chips car,
Okay.
but memory cheat like Chips is not my favorite. Like
Right.
I watched Chips as a kid,
Right.
but the Amiga Museum was created by my friend Robin Adams, and
Mhm.
Robin wrote the greatest summation of Chips. I think it's still on. It's like I watched this, I rode my bikes in formation. I have no nostalgia for these toys. And that's the way I felt kind of feel about it too. Like, nothing but love, but I don't need to own these. What I recall, and I'm gonna go to the Mega Museum because like it your memory starts to really slide as you get older. And I used to, I would know this off the top of my head in my 30s, but nowadays it's getting old. And I haven't looked at chips in a long time, but
Right.
as I recall, what happened was the Dukes of Hazzard was so popular
Mhm.
that that was like, a lot of people want to talk about like Migo's decline. They
Mhm.
had one of the hottest freaking licenses out there, and they paid $5,000 for it.
Wow.
So they still had some high notes.
Right.
Um, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. I can't quite remember. I do know that they released the motorcycles, they released them on cards even.
Mhm.
The 2+2 is a Canadian exclusive from Grand Toys that had the two guys and the two bikes. I used to own that. But
Oh,
yeah, I'm not sure if the car got made, but the car got made for the Dukes of Hazzard line.
okay.
They did Roscoe's car, and what they did is I think they reproduced the CB McCall car for a while
Okay.
because they had that line of, but that car was such a relic, like it was based on like a 50s car.
Right.
And I think they had to, or they did decide to adjust it and
Mhm.
make it look more like a squad car. Did Sarge come with it? I don't know. That's really good. And I don't mind that I don't know because I'm not Amigo chips collector.
Right.
But yeah, gosh, I don't think it got made. Oh, frick, it did. It absolutely did.
Did it?
Oh my God, yeah, look at this Amigo museum photo of it. Yeah, and it is just the same car, the highway patrol car from Dukes of Hazzard and CB McCall. And I
Wow.
swore they redid Roscoe's car, but you know what? Oh yeah, they did. They definitely did. Okay. Well, anywhu,
That
um,
solves that question.
you hit me at an Achilles heel.
I know you have the two books, the books out already. Are you working on another book? Is there other projects coming up?
Yeah, well, right now, like I'm focusing. Here's the thing. I feel like Plastic Man, but he's reaching his stretching limit. I started a magazine in 2020 called Toy Ventures.
Yep.
I am very avidly working on another issue. I had some personal issues that I had to
Mhm.
take care of for the last 4 or 5 months, and I'm working on a new issue. We are doing a crazy issue, and we have a crazy giveaway, like a giveaway that I'm so proud of. I can't wait to reveal it. Um, but another book, the book I'm trying to get done,
Mhm.
and I keep hitting a brick wall, is the book that would be best described as the poster behind you, which is Mall of Justice,
Okay.
which is people sharing their stories and photos of them meeting, Batman at in the record department of a Hills. There's a lot of humor to be ironed from that. And one of my favorite photos that I've gotten so far is like there was like an '89 Batman Joker appearance in a Buffalo mall, and it's a mall I've been to, which is kind of cool too. And the guy, like the kid, got a photo, but it's the guy playing the Joker
Right.
for the KB Toys appearance, but he's in the food court, like the thing's over, and the Joker's got like he's got a little plate of Chinese food and a soda, and the guy's taking a photo with him, and it's like this is so brilliant. Or like Lee Majors walking through a Toys R Us, it's some of the stuff and some of the stories are so funny. And one of the best stories I've gotten, and it's almost the linchpin of the book for
Mhm.
me, or it describes the book for me,
Mhm.
is a friend of mine sent me a photo of him and Wonder Woman.
Mhm.
And the one I can't remember. There's another superhero with her. I think it's Spider-Man,
Mhm.
but Wonder Woman definitely has a tattoo on her leg, and it's a man's name. And the guy said, "My only takeaway is who is Jeff?" Like
That's all you got to know.
yeah, and it's so wonderful. I love pictures of, you know, bodybuilders painted green at car shows, and just that kind of like ballyhoo and weirdness. And maybe it's just the fact that I just can't get enough of it, and I think the book isn't ready, but more. It's just
Right.
hilarious. I love that stuff. I saw the Marvel superheroes at Woolco as a kid, and
Mhm.
the photos did not come out. My mom did that like Marge Simpson. Oops, I opened the camera. And that has haunted me ever since. And it was just recently somebody finally posted a picture of the super freaking weird Hulk we saw as kids. Because before it was the suit that's behind you, it was this weird inflatable man. And I honestly remember standing like 2 feet away from it, and I could see the guy's penny loafers, and I could see a little fan,
Right.
and these kids were talking to him, and I was like, "You idiots, that's not the real Hulk," you know.
Well, I think what you describe right there with this whole thing is what makes what you do so loved is that it creates a community. You bring in people's different stories and it gets them involved too. And I
Yeah,
think
I
that's a
like reading
wonderful thing.
people's tales.
Right.
I love when people comment on stuff and tell
Mhm.
me this or that because it's a relatability to it all.
Right.
Yeah, I'd hope it'd never be like a hey, look at my stuff
Right.
because that's not where I'm going with this.
Right.
It's more like hey, let's talk about this stuff or like that's at least in my head where we're going.
Where can folks find you? Where can folks learn more about Toy Ventures, more about, I mean, Plaid Stallions, the site is there, but
Yeah.
about what you're up to?
Yeah, I got like a Plaid Stallions page, and I've the YouTube channel called Brick Man Tooth.
Mhm.
You can find out about my magazine at Plaid Stallions, and also I am one quarter of a toy company called Lincoln Monsters,
Okay.
and we're focusing very heavily on bring. We have a Kickstarter
Mhm.
right now for bringing back the Lincoln Monsters, which were 8-inch figures, and
Mhm.
we are continuing to do that. But now we want to do a 3 3/4 inch line, and they're brilliantly designed by one of my partners, Todd, and I'm really excited. I don't. This isn't a money-making venture in my head. It's a we're doing something really cool here. Like this is just something I want to be a part of and I'm really excited about it. I love making things,
Mhm.
and I especially love making things that fit into my weird sensibility of things that should exist. And as long as I don't lose my shirt, I can keep going.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we're back. That's so awesome that Brian's dad, was selling toys throughout Canada, getting into the Superpowers Canadian variants, which I didn't realize, until he told me they were being sold at gas stations, which is a pretty cool thing. I've seen them because they're the sort of the skinnier packaging for them. I have my collection of Superpowers off to the left with my Star Wars, Secret Wars figures, and a few other things there. Of course, missing the cyborg figure from Superpowers. So if anyone has one and would like to give it to me, I'm good with that. But Brian is awesome. We need to get him back on to talk more and more toys because, we love them. Comics, toys, sci-fi, Universal Monsters. That's right up our alley. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you next week with a whole slate of awesome shows. And until then, have a wonderful weekend. Bye.